Hello again and thanks for joining. Today we've got a Roco model to have a look at. It's a diesel locomotive in a Belgian Railways livery and it's number 53430 in the Roco range. You'll see on the box it says Playtime. This is actually Roco's kind of budget line, so it's a lower price point and you expect a bit less detail on it, but it is a Roco model and they're normally really good. So I'm quite looking forward to having a look at this model today, so let's get it out of the box and we'll check it out. So this is a second-hand model that I've managed to pick up here, and it still comes with some leaflets as well. There's no extra parts to fit onto this locomotive, it just comes as is. But let's have a quick look at the leaflets that we've got with us. So Roco offer different levels of detail on their models, from Playtime through Professional to Platinum. So we have Playtime at the moment, so that's going to be less details but cheaper price. But you can see they go all the way up to Platinum, and I'm sure those locomotives will be really good. And here's an example of two of their Platinum steam locomotives, and they certainly look very impressive. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford to buy one of these and then I'll have it on the channel, but for now we're just going to have a look at it in this catalogue. Then we come on to this leaflet here, which has some details about the parts of this locomotive, including the circuit board, and it looks like we can fit DCC onto this if we want. I don't think this one is DCC, I think it is just DC. And the parts continue on the back, and we've got all the part numbers here if we need to order anything. We've also got this operating manual as well, specific for this locomotive, and it shows some details here about how to take the model apart if you need to, and also how to lubricate it. And this leaflet has been written in German, English and French as well. And here is the locomotive, and the thing that strikes you straight away is the colour scheme. The Belgian Railways yellow and green is really striking, and it's represented really well on this model. It's very bright and vibrant. Let's take a closer look at it. So at this end of the locomotive, it's very characterful of this class with its headlights. It's got 4 lights here, 2 red and 2 white. It looks as though it possibly has directional lighting. We'll give it a test in a little while. The printing on this looks really good round the front. The masking of the green is pretty well done. You can see the number 5939 and underneath it the Belgian Railways logo. And just below that there is a little bit of fuzziness there going on with the masking. Not too bad though, but we do see a little bit here on this part just below the headlight here where the yellow isn't quite right either. So the painting isn't superb on this model, but it's certainly acceptable and the masking is not too bad at all. I like the silver around the lights here and also the light at the top here. The glazing is very clear, you can see straight through it, and it's also almost flush fit as well. It's got some windscreen wipers moulded into the plastic there, and you can see inside pretty easily, but there isn't any interior on this model. Nice selection of rivets going across the top of the window frame here. The buffer beam has got some really nice buffers here and some rivet detail, including the fake coupling there and some other bits and pieces. I like the checker plate on here, the little steps, and we see the coupling out the front. And the coupling sits in an M pocket which has been attached to the bogie at each end. And while this is this way up, you can see the metal chassis there. And also that the body is actually painted in yellow, so I got that wrong, it's the black it's been painted on top of the yellow. So starting to look down the side of the locomotive, you've got this door here with some handrails coming down. These are just integral into the main moulding, but they have been picked out in silver, along with the door handle as well. The door is pretty good, it's a nice representation, and it has a glazing as well. And then down the length of the diesel we have these 4 portal windows and a little raised window frame around it. Not being picked out in any colour like how the lights have, for example, but at least the glazing is really clear. Inside though you can see the mechanism of this locomotive, there's no interior detail at all. It has these grills here which are a fair representation, not the best I think, but what is really good is this line of rivets along the bottom which has been faithfully reproduced. There are some other printing on here as well as the large number, the 5939 up here. You can see here, for example, some details and numbers, and there's also some printed in yellow onto the black. And they're very clear and also very fine. The fuel tank in the middle doesn't have much detail, but it does have a couple of little ports on each corner, and it has some details down here which have been moulded into this piece of plastic. And as we get down this end of the locomotive, slight difference where it's got the shed name printed there as another transfer. Nothing different at this end of the locomotive, but it does suffer from some masking problems in the corner just up here and also underneath the light there as well. The bogies are not bad at all. They've got some nice detail of the springs and there's rivet detail and brake gear. Brake gear isn't in line with the wheels, but the wheels do have black inserts and dulled metal finish. On the roof of this locomotive, some details here. We've got some rivet detail, some hatches and various pieces. At this end of the locomotive there are some grills moulded into the roof. Not very well done, I have to admit. There is not very deep relief on those, you'd almost miss them as well. They could benefit from being picked out with some black ink, I think. You can see that the body is a bit loose on the chassis here. It seems to be held on very lightly. So we'll take this apart and we'll have a look and see what it looks like inside. So the fuel tank here just pulled off the chassis. There's nothing actually holding it on. There's no screws or anything. And the body now reveals some other secrets, like the buffer beam is actually a separate part. I thought it was integral into the main moulding, but it has actually been fitted in separately. And it looks like the buffers are also pushed through to the other side where you can see the little studs there. You can also see quite an extensive amount of plastic here, which is transferring the light from the middle of this circuit board in the chassis. These silver pieces here prevent the light bleeding through the plastic into the top of the locomotive. But a setup like this doesn't always really produce that bright lights on a locomotive. An upgrade to LED lighting on this, if you wanted to, would really reap benefits, I think. I'm also seeing that the middle of the roof panel here is actually clipped into the main body as well. It's not part of the main moulding, so that could possibly hint that this locomotive shell is used with a different roof for different versions of this locomotive. This is very similar to how a lot of American locomotives are designed and made these days, where you've got this can motor in the middle and you've got drive shafts coming out to two gearboxes on top of the bogies. No flywheels on this one, and we do have this circuit board on top. I mentioned about the lights already, but the fact that this chassis is made of all metal actually gives it a lot of weight. Let me put this back together and then we'll put it on the scales and see how much it weighs before we give it a run. So this locomotive comes in at 355 grams. I've just set this up on some Hornby third radius track and I'm using my H&M controller to provide 12 volt DC to the model. Let's give it some power and see what happens. Well, as predicted, those lights on this model really don't work that well. I wasn't giving it a lot of power, but you couldn't really see anything from the lights at all. Perhaps with some more power it would, but then it would run really fast then. It seems to be geared quite high, however that large can motor does seem to run really smoothly, and it's super quiet as well. And because it has all-wheel pickup and all-wheel drive, it crawls along really nicely at a slow speed. It's really quite impressive. They've obviously spent a lot of money on the mechanics of this rather than the body, and therefore I think this is going to be a very reliable model to have. It doesn't have the most detail possible, and there are some shortcomings like the handrails around the doors. Some of the masking isn't quite right, and the grills on the roof are really not well defined at all. But these are small things compared to what you get here, and you have to remember this is their low price budget range. And for that you get a fantastic running locomotive which will put in many years of sterling work on your model railway. It's not a display model, but it's a good model to get started into the hobby with. It's not going to break the bank. It looks fantastic. It looks good enough for most people, and I think you'd be very happy with this model in your collection. But that's just what I think. What do you think about this model? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around, and on screen in a moment there'll be a link to another video. Just click on that and I'll see you there. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. See ya!